Hello, everyone, and welcome to Real Estate Right Now, where we talk about real estate matters that matter to you. My name is Jay Izzo, and we are live here from Linda Team Studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina, part of the Greater Research Triangle Park. Today's show. Let's say you have a house, and you've had it for a while, and it's kind of looking a little dated, or maybe it's been a rental for a while, and it's kind of like it's time to sell it, but it really needs some updating, but you don't have the money to do it. Well, is there a way you can get it updated and maybe sell it? Well, that's why I brought Steve Kruger with me here today. You recognize him. He's been with us several times here. And he is it appropriate to say that you're kind of the head of the fix and flip program here at Linda Team Studios?
I would say that's fair, yes.
Okay. So, we're going to talk with Steve about how this fix and flip program works, but we're also going to ask him some questions about things that you probably have. And certainly if you're watching us live right now, feel free to ask your questions. We always encourage that. If you're listening to us by podcast, you can always write me at jay@lindacraft.com. That's JAY@lindacraft.com. And we'll be happy to get your questions. I can pass them along to Steve and just provide your email address. And what we'll do is I'll send it right to Steve, and Steve will get back and he will talk to you personally about that as well. So something for you to do out there as well. So there's some people out there who probably are hearing about this program, the fix and flip program, for the first time. How does the program work, basically?
So what we have here is a program that if you have a house that we could increase the value by making some improvements to it, but you don't necessarily have the money to do it. You have the equity in your house that you could certainly do it, but you don't excuse me, you don't necessarily have a lot of cash on hand to do that with, or even don't want to spend that cash on hand for whatever reason. We can help you finance that. So we've got a company that'll do that. And it's basically a program that just we go in and with the advice of myself or one of the other agents here on the team, we can help you figure out how are you going to get the best return on your investment by doing that.
So what preempted or what problems were you seeing that with home sellers that led you to create or be part of the creation of the fix and flip program?
Yeah, so we I've always when working with sellers and I see a house that could use improvements, I've excuse me, I've typically always said, if you plan on making improvements, I can help you profit from that. We can make you more money selling this house. Not everybody wants to do that, but I've got the knowledge, the expertise. I can look at a house and say, if you make these changes, if you want to spend $15,000, $20,000 here, I'll help you make $40,000, $50,000 on like added to the purchase price. So you're literally you might spend 20 grand and sell the house for 40 grand more. So you're profiting $20,000 from the work. So that's been something I would recommend. And we would occasionally run into people that didn't have the funds to do it, but would have liked to. And so that's sort of where that program came about. And then we had a really big thing is when the iBuyers started coming to our market. So if you're familiar with Open Door, OfferPad, these companies, they'll make a cash offer on your property. They are typically a lot lower, understandably, because they're just going to put the house on the market and sell it. They're going to get market value as well. So whatever you can get listing it and putting it on the market, that market value is what they expect to get out of the house as well. So they have to pay you less in order to make a profit, right?
Sure.
And so a lot of what they're doing is they're flipping, they're doing a fix and flip or fix and list as well, where they're buying this property from you already at a discount. Mm. Then they're going in and doing some of the things I recommend. So they might paint, put in new carpet, new LVP, whatever it is, improve the value of the house and make a profit. And so we were like, well, what can we do for our clients to give them something so that they don't just sell to these companies and make so much less money? We want to help them put money in their pockets. And we've had especially over the last few years, we started the program where Linda Craft Team would actually offer to do that financing ourselves. And it just comes out of your closing proceeds. Now we have companies that will do that. And They'll come in, do the work, and they get paid at closing. And so that's kind of how that program really developed. Is once we wanted something to say, hey, you don't have to sell. A lot of people will sell to those companies just out of convenience. They're like, I don't want to fool with it. And I've seen that happen before. But I know from hearing people talk that they think, I don't want to put money in improving my house. I don't have the money. My house isn't going to get full value, so I'm just going to take a cash offer. Well, if that's how you're feeling, rather than take a cash offer that's 10% off, you've got a house that's currently worth $350. Why sell it to them for, that's 35 grand off? Why sell it to them for $315? Make $35,000 less on it in the condition it's already in. But why not also, with my help, put $15,000 into it to now get $380,000 out of the house? After you take out the 15 grand you spent, you made $365 instead of $315. You made $50,000 more dollars. That makes a lot more sense to me than selling your house to an iBuyer. So,
is there a homeowner or property type that is a better candidate for this program? And when might maybe selling a property as is make more sense?
Right. So the first part of your question, if you have a house that could use updating, and I understand we all love our houses and we think they look great, but if they don't look like today's new construction, then they may need updating. It's as simple as that. You can say, I've got granite tops, I've got hardwood floors, I've got beautiful cabinets. Well, if those cabinets are brown and those countertops are brown or black and those floors are the yellowish hardwood finish that was popular 30 years ago, or whatever finish it might have that feels dated, you can benefit and make a profit from updating those things. So even a house that's just 25 years old, if you haven't updated it since then, could benefit from this. And really, we can help you even if you don't need to finance these improvements. If you have the money and just want advice on how to make a profit getting your house sold, all this same advice works. And we have experts here, myself included, that can help you maximize that value. But so any house that needs improving aesthetically is a candidate. If your house looks like new construction, you're not. So, and then when you say, when's it better to be as is? If you have a house that needs a lot of work, it's what I would call a true flip special. Like the only buyers for that house are going to be investors. And those houses are out there. I've sold plenty of those houses. And I've had folks that are like, well, and maybe it's not in just complete disarray, but they want to update a few things. And I'm like, look, this house needs so much improving and updating. It's almost an all or nothing proposition. You just sell it as is. Let an investor come in here. Yes, they're going to profit, but unless you're planning to do a full $75,000 remodel on this $300,000 house that's in pretty rough shape, it's just not worth it. So,
when you're walking through a house, right, how do you determine, where to spend the money and where you're going to maximize the seller value?
That's a great question, and that's where folks should get the advice of a real estate broker. I can tell you, I have gone into houses before, and they say, "This is what we want to do." Or they've already done it, right? They're wanting me now to give them a price on the house, and we're going to list it. And I'm like, I don't always tell them this, but it's like, I wish you had consulted me before you did the things you already did, because there are areas that you're not going to get as much profit from. And there's also things people do sometimes, which is why talk to a real estate agent. We do know what's happening in the marketplace. We know what sells fast, what sells for the most money. And so I've had people that say, I just painted. And I'm like, that's wonderful, but you just painted the walls that same beige color that was popular 25 years ago.
Right.
They just repainted it in the same original color. It's like you spent all that money and you didn't improve it very much. Yes, it's fresh paint, but if you had picked a color that's now popular, you would have actually improved the value far more. And so it's important you just get good advice on what you're doing there. But also, paint is number one. So to me, if you're going to improve the value of a house, you start with paint. because you can refresh the entire look of a house without changing anything else just by painting it. You still might have dated kitchen, dated bathroom, dated flooring, but as long as everything's in good shape and you've just painted all those walls now in a popular color that brightens everything up, you've refreshed the whole look of that house. That is the best bang for the buck you can get. And that is if it needs it. If you've already got some paint choices that are popular at the moment, then you don't necessarily need that. Now, if the walls are starting to look rough and beat up, I also recommend paint. But paint's number one. And then I look at the flooring. And that's the other way you can refresh the whole look without doing other improvements. So if you have hardwood floors, if they need refinishing, if they look bad because you have dogs that have been tearing them up,
Right,
or
right.
you've just scuffed them up, you've been living in the house for 30 years and they've got 30 years of living on those hardwoods, right? Refinishing those will make the house look much more appealing. And especially we can take what was an older finish that was popular 25, 30 years ago and change it to a finish that's more popular now. So now not only did you take away the negative of my floors are just beat up, but you've changed it to not only were they beat up, they look dated. Now they look like what's stylish today. So your flooring's number two, and you got your hardwoods, carpet. We can put in LVP, and we'll look. When I come through and I look at the house, I'm determining like you already have hardwoods. Let's just refinish these, or you've got multiple flooring choices throughout. It's like maybe we just put LVP through this whole bottom level. Depends on the price point of the house, price of the LVP. I'll get estimates sometimes for doing both. And then it's like, you know what, for $2,000 more, it probably makes sense. Let's go ahead and put the LVP everywhere. Other times it's like, this doesn't make sense. But so to me, you start with your paint and your floors. Your curb appeal is very important. So if the house looks like it needs work on the outside, if you have, I tell people all the time, if you have things like rotted siding, um, things that are very visible that have to be dealt with, you're hurting your value. So a buyer's paying you less. They're looking at the house and they're wondering what else has been neglected. It's unappealing visually, so it's all bringing down your value. But then here's what happens: you have a house that you've listed for $600,000, and they're paying you $20,000 less. Now maybe there's some other things going on too, but they're just paying you less value because of the way your siding looks. And then they get their inspection report back that says all this siding's damaged. And guess what? Now they want to negotiate that repair with you, and you're paying to fix that siding anyway. So now you just lost value on the purchase price and you lost it again in the repair negotiation. I'm not saying you always have to negotiate that. And if I can tell you from experience, if an agent brings me an offer and says, hey, it's a little low because we're the siding, and then they want to negotiate the repair of that siding, I'm like, no, you negotiated that in the price. You made that very clear. But that's what happens a lot of times. You're getting dinged twice. So the exterior is very important. If it needs paint, if it needs siding repairs, cleaning the gutters is just something you should be doing if they're full of stuff. Because when I go show a house and I see gutters full of, like around here, pine straw or leaves, and I'm wondering, how often do they clean these gutters? What problems might there be that we're not seeing? So your exterior is important when it comes to fix and list. We can include gutter cleaning certainly, but like sprucing up the landscaping and the exterior look. And sprucing up the landscaping is another one of those things you need to talk to a real estate broker before you go and do it. Because I've had people like and if you put a lot of money into a landscape for your own enjoyment and for when you're going to live in
Right.
that house for a long time, great. But understand that when you go to sell it one day, $50,000 invested in landscaping, $25,000 does not equate to similar value when you want to sell the house one day. You're not recouping all that. I'm not saying you don't recoup some of it, because if it looks great and it's certainly a selling feature, gets you more money, sells faster, but you're usually not getting equal return on your investment. We want better than equal, and we certainly don't want below equal. So things like just putting down some fresh mulch, pulling any weeds, if you're around here, pine straw, where you use pine straw. I have a guy can go in, do a lawn cleanup, depending on what all needs to be done, relatively inexpensively, $500, $1,000, depends on the house, depends on what all has to be done. But like, you got giant bushes and trees growing up into the house, like all that stuff has an impact on when somebody first walks up and views the house. And so those are things that pretty inexpensively you can deal with. Add to the curb appeal. Curb appeal is the first thing, right? It's not only the first thing when they walk up to the house, it's the first photo. How many listings do you look at? Yes, occasionally people are doing listings these days where the first photo is actually like the kitchen or whatever, but 95% probably of all listings, the first photo is the front of the house. If the front of your house doesn't look great in the photo, you might not get enough clicks for them to see how beautiful the inside of the house is. So that's really, really important. So I would say, your curb appeal, your paint, your floors, and then we start, excuse me, start to look at things like kitchen and the bathrooms. Those are going to be your next big items that you can improve the value. And even there, how do we improve it? How do we do it for as little money as possible with the biggest return on investment? I've had people, again, where they contact me and they're going through the house. And they're like, I did a $40,000 kitchen remodel. And so they expect that the value's now increased $40,000 by that or more by that remodel. And I have to explain to them, well, you took cabinets that were fine and you replaced them with cabinets that you just personally liked better. You took countertops that were fine and you replaced them with countertops that you liked better. So you didn't add $40,000 of value. You spent $40,000 on your taste. Now, if you're going from laminate countertops or Corian countertops and putting in quartz or granite, you're improving the value. But if you already had quartz or granite, granted, some of that quartz and granite now looks dated, and you can add value by changing that out. But a lot of times, I won't even suggest, maybe we leave that darker colored granite, but we still maybe lighten up the cabinets or whatever. But there's ways to improve the value without going full blown kitchen remodel. We're not talking all new cabinets and appliances, and it's just maybe it's paint the cabinets. If they've got a finish that was popular 30 years ago, paint those cabinets and then put on some quartz or granite countertops, tile backsplash, and that's it. And you've just improved the value by a lot more than what it costs to do those things. And then the bathroom comes next. And then you're pretty good, because if you think about the way I always put it, when you think about bedrooms are just boxes, right? I like my bedroom because it's a large box. I hate my bedroom because it's a small box.
Right.
I think that this small box is just fine for the kids because I don't have to sleep in here.
Right.
But in general, they're just big boxes, right? They don't have cabinetry, countertops. They don't have, there's exceptions to that. I've seen houses where, you've got the tray ceiling and you've got a fireplace. There's things that can be appealing. But in general, all those rooms are boxes. So if the walls and the floors look good in there, you're fine. So that's why it kind of goes curb appeal, paint, floors, kitchen, bathroom.
If you were to emphasize, because tied into the question I was about to ask is what improvements typically provide the best return when preparing the home for sale. And then I was going to ask you what were some things that aren't worth it. If you were to focus on some things that aren't worth it, what would be some of those things that are not worth doing that people have a tendency to want to go to think that that's going to give them the best improvement?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll have people that start talking about tearing down walls, expanding a closet. Those are all things that, yes, they're definitely positives, right? Like if you take a choppy floor plan and you open up that floor plan by taking out a wall, now all of a sudden the kitchen opens up into the family room. You've added value, but have you added much more value than what it costs to put that to do that work? There's exceptions to that, but that does tend to get more into the total house flipping. Like you buy a house in our area, let's say you're in North Hills, and it's an older home, and you're buying it cheap because it's not been updated since 1965, and you're going in with a full-blown remodel, and you're going to make a nice profit off that. North Hills might not have been the best example because they're probably just knocking that house down and building a new one.
Yeah, that's true.
But that type of thing works when you're talking about you've invested and gotten a deal on the property in the first place. But when we're talking about, for one, trying to keep within a certain budget and making the most return on your investment, typically like knocking down walls does not give you anything close to the ROI of the other things I mentioned earlier. Popcorn ceiling. Everybody's like, should I scrape the popcorn ceiling? I get it. Nobody likes popcorn ceiling. It is so far down the list of things. When I show I've shown countless homes to people. I've sold countless homes. Popcorn ceiling is never that big of a deal to anyone.
Right.
If it has it and they want to remove it, they're still going to buy the house and remove it. They don't look at it as nearly the same negative. It's not having, part of the battle here is just the impression a buyer gets when they're walking through the door. And so if everything looks great and it just has popcorn ceiling, that's so minor to them, versus if you've scraped the popcorn ceiling, but like everything else about the house feels dated, they're not going to be like, honey, check out the ceiling. They scraped the popcorn. It's not going to have anything close to the same return on your investment. I've had where somebody was thinking about expanding a closet, and I get it. Like my house has the tiniest closet for a primary bedroom that I've ever had in my entire existence. I think I had a bigger closet. I honestly had bigger closets just when I was growing up, like in college, living in apartments. There was a remodel done in that house where they actually reduced the size of the closet to make it a bigger shower and everything, right? So if somebody said to me, I want to expand that closet, in the sense of my closet, it could potentially make sense because that's a negative in that house. But again, it didn't bother us. I mean, it bothered us, but we made it work, right? Those types of things, you start talking about the expense to like expand a closet, things like that. Those often don't have the same return on your investment and may not be worth it. Bathrooms, people will be like, what about if we convert this and add a third full bathroom? Third full bathroom is certainly nice. I mean, we have 2 full bathrooms in my house. My kids are off to college now, but when they were not in college and when they're home for the summer, third full bathroom would be nice because those 2 have to share a bathroom. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. So one of the reasons why so many homeowners will be like, yeah, that third full bathroom would be nice, but I have my full bathroom. I'm the guy paying for it. So that's another one of those things sometimes. Now there's exceptions to that. There's houses like I mentioned North Hills, like you go into like Northcliffe. We've got neighborhoods around here that are older, that are in a great location and built in the 60s when it was very common to just have 1 full bathroom for 3 bedrooms. And you had like multiple half bathrooms, but like there was really 1 shower for the whole family. Adding a second full bathroom to a house like that, you may improve the value. You probably will improve it by more than it costs. And that kind of house is easier to sell with 2 full bathrooms. When you have the 1 full bathroom, it does get a little more complicated to sell it. So there's exceptions there, but in general, doing the costlier things rarely pan out. I've had folks, again, this is where like I brought in after it's happened. I had somebody put crown molding everywhere, crown molding throughout the whole house, even in closets. And I was like, you didn't get any return on value. I mean, most people, like, it depends on the price point of the house, right? Luxury house is a little different. But this was like nowadays it's probably a $350,000 townhome. This was 10 years ago, it was probably a $250,000 townhome or 225. Adding a bunch of crown molding throughout that whole house was just not. Now he did the work himself, so that was a little different. I still think it was a waste of his time, but it didn't cost him that much. But I certainly wouldn't advise somebody to spend the money doing those sort of things. So it's helpful to have the advice of somebody that knows what's giving you the highest return on your investment, what's not necessary. And it really is the simpler things. It goes back again to paint, floors, and then how can I, as inexpensively as possible, update the kitchen and the bathroom. Anything beyond that, maybe you get a return, maybe you don't, and you definitely want an expert to give you some advice on that.
I think that leads me to the thought of, okay, so how do you determine if you're going to spend 10,000, 25,000, 50,000, whether that's going to get the seller the most return?
Yeah.
How do you go about that determination?
So for me, having done this so many times, it's pretty intuitive, but I'll go around the house, and one of the things I do with this program, and even if you're not financing all this, if you just have the money and want to do it, I will come through and give you my advice. And not only my advice, I'm going to run a market analysis, and I'm going to show you, here's what I think your value is right now, and here's what I think your value will be if you make these improvements. And then you can make your own determination. And I tell folks, like, if it's not worth the hassle to invest 15 grand and get this work done to make an additional 15 to 25 grand, then don't do it. Like, if it's not worth that to you, let's just sell it the way it is. We'll get it sold. This isn't about, like, your house isn't going to sell. Every house can sell. I have sold houses where mold is literally growing up all the walls. And I've sold a house where the floor in the living room had completely caved in to where I'd never seen before what it looks like when you see what it's like below the floorboards, because the floor had completely caved in. I sell houses like that all the time to investors. I know where to price them. That's an extreme, but even a house that just needs updating, if you price it right, you're going to sell in a reasonable amount of time. Everything has its price. There's plenty of buyers willing to come in and make the improvements that I'm advising you to make, right? And they know they're going to get a discount. I tell people this all the time. My kids are in college, but when they want to buy their first houses, I'm hoping they will take my advice, and they probably will. I want them to buy something. It doesn't have to be a total fixer-upper, but if they can go in and buy a house at this price and invest 25 grand to fix it up, and now all of a sudden that house is worth 50 grand more than what they paid for it, I've just added they've just added $25,000 to their wealth. And then when they're ready to sell that house one day, that 25,000 is going to help with the down payment of the next house and all these things, right? And there's even loan programs out there for where you can finance the renovations. So that's kind of the thing I do is I say, here's the value beforehand, here's the value after. You make your decision what you want to do. And then I prioritize things. So I tend to go through the house and I'll make my list and I'll tell the contractor, here's what I want you to quote. And then I'm going to go through that list and I'm going to determine from there, all right, let's do these things, but maybe not these things. And it's going to be the same thing that I've been saying is, like, first and foremost, does it need paint? Next, what do we need to do about the floors? And then, like, the kitchens, the bathrooms. I did forget to mention when I said that you've got nothing else because the rooms are all boxes. You've got your doorknobs, your fixtures, light fixtures, all that. Those can certainly be updated. Those do fall after all those other things I mentioned. Sometimes, rather than do much improving bathrooms, maybe you just put that money into, if you've got the polished brass doorknobs everywhere, maybe you replace all those. That can be done fairly inexpensively. Maybe you replace old, dated-looking ceiling fans with modern ones, that sort of thing. So we go through, and I'll have my list, and it may be that it needs all these things. I'm like, quote me paint, quote me redoing these hardwoods and putting in new carpet, quote me painting the cabinets and putting on some granite or quartz countertops, and quote me changing out some of these light fixtures in the bathrooms. Maybe it's quote me painting the cabinets, putting on new tops, changing out those faucets, changing out these light fixtures, and this old dated looking mirror. Let's replace that. And you'd be amazed how cheap you can get some of those things, because you can go on Amazon and get a mirror that looks great that costs $150 or something. So I go through, I get the quote on all those things, and then I help people determine, like, all right, and I keep in mind the budget. Like, I might get this quote and it's $50,000 worth of work, and knowing the house and knowing the client and the whole situation, it's like, all right, let's keep this to 30,000, and what can we eliminate? And what can we get the biggest return on with that 30,000? And more than likely, it's going in that same order that I mentioned, which is the paint, the floors, and so on. But then I can get a good feel. But if you stick to the things I've been mentioning and you put that money in, you should double it. And really, under current market conditions, at least here in the Triangle, and probably in a lot of, I would say the majority of the country, there are areas that, like certainly the Southeast and the Midwest, have more inventory at the moment than other parts of the country because we've had so much new construction booming since the pandemic. But other areas it still applies to. So, um, you can go in. Or I lost my train of thought from where I was there, but you can go in, update that house, and whether you're putting in, 20,000. Oh, I know what it was now. I said you could double it. It's almost moving towards 2.5 times, 3 times, because we have such a growth in inventory that the buyers have so many choices. They walk into these houses that need updating, and if they're going to buy them, they want a deeper discount than they used to get because we've got such an imbalance at the moment between supply and demand. And so when I'm making recommendations right now, it's often like put in 15. I used to tell you you'll profit 15. Now I'm saying you'll probably profit 20, maybe 25. So because of how I've noticed listing a lot of properties that the ones that don't make the improvements, they're sitting longer and selling even lower because myself as an experienced listing agent and other experienced listing agents, we're going to look at a property and we've got our comparable sales, but sometimes it's all right. All my comparable sales are a little more updated than this one. So how do I come up with this price? And in my head, I go, well, for my property to look like this one that's more updated, I think it would cost the seller $20,000 to do that. So I'm going to knock 40 grand off the price. And that's probably my suggested list price. And then I started finding out, a year and a half ago that, I didn't discount enough. This house is sitting when it shouldn't be because I was using that old rule of thumb. And now it's not 20,000 of work to get to this price means a $40,000 discount. It means a $50,000 discount, a $60,000 discount. So in our current market, you're profiting even more than you used to by making those improvements. I would say when you start crossing like the $50,000 threshold, it's going to depend on the price of the home because the cheaper homes, that's an awful lot of work when you get up. And people sometimes are surprised how much you can get done for $50,000, even in a really large house. I've walked through houses with the homeowner and they're like, it's going to be $100,000. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's going to be half that. Bigger houses, it is going to be more because everything's more. You've got more square footage. So the paint's more, the flooring's more, everything's more. I just did one. $60,000 was the investment in that because it's a 3,500 square foot house in Cary and needed a lot. But in general, a lot of these houses we're talking about, it's typically $15,000 to $25,000 is kind of the range we're usually seeing. And then you just go from there depending on the price and the size of the house.
So this program that the Linda Craft team has, how does the renovate now and pay at closing work for them?
So it is a great program because you don't have to put up the money now to make these renovations. You're paying for it out of your equity. And so we have 3 different contractors that can come in and give you quotes. The house I just mentioned in Cary got quotes from all 3. Chose the contractor they liked best, price they liked best, and that's who they worked with. But all 3 of them offered the same thing. There's some nuances to each one, but we do have where you can get the work done. And if your house closes within the first 2 months after you go on the market, then you're not even paying any interest. It's just they did $25,000 worth of work, and at closing they got paid $25,000. If it takes longer than 2 months, and keep in mind that's not necessarily 2 months that you were literally on the market, because the day they finish the work, we have to go in and photograph, get the house on the market. Mm-hmm. That might eat several days to a week, depending on the timing. But if you go past that, you're paying 1% per month on the amount of work that was done. So if it was $30,000 1% of $30,000 is $300. So it's costing you $300 if it took another month to sell. Even if it took 6 months to sell your house
Right.
and you paid 4 of those payments, $1,200 to have gotten $30,000 worth of work paid for, that's going to return to you 30 to 45 to $50,000 is well worth that $1,200, right?
Right.
So it is a very affordable financing program. It's very simple to do. And even if you're worried that you have bad credit, we can get that done through one of the contractors as well. So we have lots of options to help you improve the value of your house and put as much money as possible in your pocket.
Can you walk me through a real life example where what the condition of the home was in, what you recommended, and then how much it sold for?
Sure. And I can give you the one very recent one was the one in Cary that I mentioned. This one was a bigger scale operation because we also had a homeowner that had started a little bit of a DIY project renovating his bathroom. And then the contract just came in and finished it all up. But that house, when I first analyzed it, I was thinking you probably aren't getting $800,000 for this house. Probably getting about, I think I was suggesting a list price around 775 if they did nothing. They put in a $60,000 investment. It looked fantastic. They refinished their hardwoods, put in all new carpet. They had cabinets that had like the laminate finish that was peeling off.
Yeah.
And the contractor just removed all that laminate, sanded the fronts, and painted them. So we had freshly painted cabinets, put in some quartz countertops, changed out some light fixtures and things, completed that bathroom renovation. Like, it looked night and day from when I first walked through that house. And this happens all the time. Those sellers are like, wow, I wish we had done this sooner and could have enjoyed it a little bit, because the transformation, you're just blown away. But so is the person that walks through the door, and that's why you're profiting. So that house, after seeing the work, and my original analysis was even, maybe we list it for 775, and if you invest, and I'm ballparking things as I'm looking at the house, and I'm like, so maybe you spend 50 grand and you're going to get 875. You're going to make a $50,000 profit. Once I saw the house, did a new market analysis, I was like, we can price this at 900,000. This house looks great.
Wow.
And we priced it at 900,000, and it sold the first day it hit the market for full price.
Wow.
So they invested 60 grand and sold the house for about 125 grand more than I thought they would had they not made. And also, when I was talking about how you might make more than double, because they had spent some money going a little like with a full blown bathroom renovation, their ROI would have been even better than double had that not been part of the equation. Because that was one of those things where I talk about, like, sometimes you don't have to go the full blown. Now, that bathroom looks phenomenal and certainly helped sell the house right away and make a profit. So I'm not saying it wasn't profitable, but the total ROI numbers might have been a little different had we not had that part of it. But certainly by just improving all those things I said, and you would be amazed, like, if they had not even updated the kitchen and bathroom, just change in the paint and the flooring transformed the whole house. All these houses that have the paint choices that were popular in the early 2000s feel very dated to today's buyers. That's not the trend. They're yellowish, beigeish, brown. I call it the brown look. Everything in the house is brown. The walls are beige, the cabinets are brown, the floors are brown, the countertops are brown or black, and it's all just dark, and it's not today's style. So you go in, when they refinish their hardwoods, we refinished it with a little bit more stylish finish than what it had, because it had the house was built in the 90s. It was that yellowish, I call it the yellow blonde kind of hardwood finish. Yeah. We darkened that up a little bit. You only darken it up so much depending on the type of wood, but made it look more modern. Just that, the new carpet and the fresh paint transformed the whole house. It just felt like a breath of fresh air versus like when I first walked in it was like, ugh, right? Like I feel that way as a listing agent who understands the product I'm selling. That's how the buyer feels. If a buyer walks into your house and their first reaction is, ugh, you're getting paid,
Right.
But if they walk through the door and they're like, oh,
Yeah.
You're getting paid for that.
Right.
That's the point. That's why you make a profit. It is that emotional reaction that the
Yeah.
buyer has. Because people also say, well, I'm going to go make all these changes and they're not going to like them and they're going to change it to something else. First of all, no, they're not most of the time. But even if they do, they still paid you a premium for that same emotional reaction that I'm
Right.
talking about.
Right. So yeah, they're paying for a wow versus an
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. If somebody's watching, listening, and has a home that needs maybe updating or is thinking about selling, how can they find out whether the fix and flip program makes financial sense for them?
So if they want to reach out to me here at Linda Craft Team, you want me to go ahead and give all my contact
Yeah,
info?
why not? Go ahead.
You can call me at 919-740-9795, 919-740-9795, just like when you watch infomercials. And my email address, steve@lindacraft.com. So either one of those ways, reach out to me. I will be happy. There's no cost to you. I will
Right.
meet you at the property. I will go through it. I will give you my input on how to maximize your value. And we can get quotes from a contractor. I can go over the program with you and we can help you put more money in your pocket. It may be I come out and I say, you know what? Your house looks really good the way it is. Yes, we can improve it a little bit, but I don't think it's worth it. I'll give you that advice too. So, and if you don't need to finance it, like I said before, you still can benefit. You're just not financing it. I can come out and do all the same things for you. But yeah, reach out to me. Like I said, before you spend a dime, I'm giving you a very honest appraisal of here's the value right now. And I even set up a Zoom conference with you and I show you. I'm like, here are the houses where I determine this value. This is not some made up number. This is in your area, the houses that have not been updated, all sold for this. And here are the ones that have been updated and look what they sold for. And then I'm comparing, I'm saying, the other ones that look like yours, and then here's the ones that have fresh paint, updated kitchen, updated flooring, and look how much more they sold for. And so I can show you the real true examples and numbers for you to make your own decision from there. And then we get the quote too, right? So quote comes back and it's like, all right, so, this makes sense. If you want to spend this money, you're going to be able to sell for this. So
really cool. I mean, this is really informative. We had a lot of people coming in and out throughout the course of the day. I mean, I was watching the numbers just fly coming up. So really cool. So everybody appreciate it. Thanks for your time today. Remember, it's steve@lindacraft.com, STEVE@lindacraft.com. And you can get a hold of him and he will be happy to come out. It is no charge, just as a reminder. They do work with general contractors. This isn't some, you're going to make sure that everything is legal and above board and there's not going to be issues. So that's really thing. But the big deal is you've just increased your negotiating leverage and at the same time, being careful of over improving where it just doesn't make sense.
Yep. And your house not only is going to sell for more money, but it's going to sell faster too.
Yeah.
So if that's important to you, which it is for most sellers I ever work with.
Right. Yeah. Well, time is money
too. Yep.
Right. Thanks, Steve, for doing this.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, folks. Hey, this is a show. You had a lot of choices. You chose us. We thank you for that, for sure. You know what? Give us a thumbs up on YouTube, wherever you're listening to the show via podcast. Why not give us a 5-star positive review? Most of all, though, what's really important is to tell your friends that we're on Thursdays at 12:30 Eastern time, and they can watch us live and you can ask your questions live. As always, if you do have a question, you can always just drop it off to me at j@lindacraft.com. I'll be happy to get it to the right person so we can answer your questions as quickly as possible. As I say to you all over the world, you got a lot of choices. You chose us. Thank you so much. And ciao, everybody.
Ciao.